Alright, welcome back class to our discussion on ethics. So before your reporting, I will be giving you first the introduction to ethics. So this is the summarized version of what is the things that you need to know about ethics. So of course, as I have assigned some of you for the topics to be reported, I know that you have a lot to know about norms, principles, theories, and standards. What is I know that I have already provided to you the difference between ethics and morals, the definition and where the source and why it needs to be done. Right, so for now, this will be revolving around some things that you need to know, like say for example about moral indicators, branches of ethics, and some terms that you have to know, like say for example the distinction of what is ethical, what is moral, and what is legal, and some definitions around it. So one of my resources is this, the Contemporary Moral Arguments, Readings and Ethical Issues. So this is very useful to me. It's very thick now, and this is the instructor's edition, coming from the Oxford University Press. All right. So as some of you might say that ethics is just only a subject belonging to an old curriculum, I guess you're wrong, because it is something, a course or a subject that you have to know, and you have to tackle, or you have to have some basic understanding about this. You cannot just underestimate this one, because it is very relevant to our daily life, right? So here's the ethics and the moral domain. Of course, the things around ethics will be moral judgments, principles, values, and theories. And ethics is all about the philosophical examination of these terms, the four terms included or within the brackets. So philosophical means it is a systematic exploration of life's big questions using critical thinking and logical argument. So maybe since you have not yet immersed what we call ethical dilemma, so I would say that you are not that interested yet to know about ethics, but later on you will have a glimpse of it. So the topics within this discussion will be about the characteristics of ethics, moral indicators, the three branches of ethics, although there is the fourth of that, but I will not include that one. The last will be about ethics and law. I will not include religion, because I know that it will involve about the source of moral laws as God, and it will already tackle about the divine command theory, which is part of the report. So I will just give the basic on ethics and laws. All right, the first property of characteristics which makes it unique and divisive is its characteristics. First is its property of overridingness. Like what is overridingness? Of course, if we have what we call moral norms, there is also non-moral norms. So moral norms has a stronger hold to us than non-moral ones do. What does it mean? It means that moral norms has a strong effect, and sometimes has a more obligatory effect to us. Let's say for example, if you are presented with two options, one is belonging to the moral norm and the other belonging to the non-moral. So of course you have to choose the moral norms because it has a consequence, while the non-moral norms has no specific consequence of its own. Let's say for example abortion. We know that it is legal in most of the states and most of the nations, but many believes that it is immoral, especially the Christians and some believers. So let's say, for example, if you are a believer that abortion is an immoral thing to do, you are presented by the law. For example, let's say it's already legalized in our country, and you have experienced an unwanted pregnancy. You're pregnant, but you're not ready. You have not anticipated it. You have not planned about it. Of course, the law will say you have to abort it. But you're a believer that it is an immoral thing to do, and it is a mortal sin. It is a big and serious sin. Of course, you will not follow the law. You will instead keep the baby, regardless of whatever consequences will happen in the future, because you believe that it is an immoral law. It is an immoral thing to do. I mean, martial law, it is legal. Let's say, for example, if it is signed with the president or by whoever, the Congress, legal, but people tend not to like it because it is conditioned and influenced by the abuses and the many unpleasant things happened in the past under the presidency of Ferdinand Marcos. So when we talk about martial law in the present time, we tend to not to agree and to resist on the idea of having it again. So it might be legal. It is written in the constitution that in some necessary circumstances that it needs to be it can be possibly be executed, but we resist on that one. It may be legal, but we resist. Cutting of an ancient tree. Let's say, for example, this is an etiquette. This is ethical. Some people believe in this, that we should not kill our ancient trees. Let's say for that for example, that is an etiquette. So what should we follow? Cutting is unethical, but for safety of bypassers, it needs to be cut down. So we are talking right here now about what is more necessary, what is much necessary to do, the etiquette, the ethical, or the moral norm. The moral norm, which has a relevant thing to affect with the people. I mean, it has a moral effect to the people. It's relevant, morally relevant towards the safety of the people. So it is ethical. I mean, it is unethical because it is against the etiquette. But for the safety of the bypassers, it needs to be cut down. So that the choices is here about the ethical and moral. So the ethical, it is what we commonly believe, that it is not advisable to cut the tree, but with the reasons, or with good reasons, especially on safety and for the life of the bypassers, which is more obligatory. So we have to disregard what we think that is ethical. All right. So we're talking about here the moral norms. So next characteristic is impartiality. What is impartiality? It is the idea that same ethical standards are applied to everyone. Everyone should be considered of equal moral worth, and that each person's interest must be given equal weight. Let's say, for example, do not assault innocent people. So this kind of norm does not only apply to innocent people, because when we talk about impartiality, it must be applied to all. It must be applied regardless of his or her social standing, race, gender, or age. So it is, although this kind of things like differences like social standing, race, gender, age, it is not morally relevant. It is not morally relevant. But let's say, for example, taking away one's freedom. It is of course unethical, and it is illegal because it is our right to freedom. We have right to freedom, like freedom to expression. Of course, our freedom as we can is as we can do everything that we want, except those illegal things. Like you will be imprisoned. Taking away one's freedom. If you did not commit a crime, of course, that is immoral and illegal to imprison you. But in some cases, it is morally relevant. Let's say, for example, if that person has committed a serious crime, or let's say, for example, isolation in a form of quarantine. Let's say, for example, it is part of the protocol of the IATF to monitor people with the COVID, a positive sort of. Let's say quarantine is also depriving one's freedom, but it is more relevant to make sure that the people are surrounding him will be safe from the virus. All right. Universality. This is very this is in connection to Kantian. Although this you will be having more of this by the time that the reporter about deontology will be will talk about this. So universality applies to all relevant similar circumstances. Dili lang kay on this particular circumstance, and then the next it will no longer be the same. It should be applied to all similar circumstances. Let's say, for example, ants deliberately injuring someone. We judge that as wrong. But in the other area scenario where Edward's deliberately injuring someone, we will say it's right. That is wrong. That is no. It should be also wrong. There should be some sort of consistency, because if there's no consistency, then we violated this one characteristic of ethics: universality. The fourth is reason-driven. Reason-driven, I guess this is one of the most important characteristics of ethics, that there should be a critical thinking applied. And in order to avoid moral judgments that are wrought out of thin air or concocted from prejudice or blind emotions, so there should be a critical thinking, and it should be supported by good reasons. Let's say, for example, you are trying to convince people that torturing is permissible, but you have not presented any good reasons why you should torture people. Or the other way around, that the torturing people is impermissible. You will say that torturing people with have committed crime is impermissible. Kumbaga, dili pwede. Then you have not presented any reasons about it. Of course, no people will not believe you, because that claim is that kind of proposal is hanging and has not provided enough reasons to convince people. Believing someone's claim, so that's a typo. Believing someone's claim. Let's say, for example, he is claiming that he has invented something very important, and then you cannot just believe him if he will not present his invention, of course. Or let's say, for example, he is claiming a theory. He is proposing a theory because he wished it to be true, but for some reasons he has failed to present good reasons supporting ideas about his theory. Of course, you will also not believe the person. So, and let's say, for example, a politician is running for a position. He's just running for a position and saying a lot of promises, but has not presented you a proper agenda on how to implement such plans and promises. So what will happen? We will doubt the credibility of that person on how he would fulfill his promises. There should be a proper plans and agenda on how he would make it to reality, because it is very common. Politicians are promising this, promising this, promising that. Later on, we'll just twist it and then justify his actions, and will do such many excuses to excuse himself. So one of the best example of that is our president. I'm not attacking him, but it is an attack to his promises, and that his promises that he would defend the West Philippine Sea. But here now, he is denying that he has not mentioned anything about it. Alright, what is the connection of emotion and conscience to ethics? Emotion is an essential element in moral life. It can help us empathize with others and enlarge our understanding of the stakes involved in moral decisions. Empathize is we can feel what others feel in the same situation. Let's say, for example, that person is undergoing a financial depression. Of course, if you have experienced the same period before, you will also feel the same, that that person must have undergoing an uneasy and struggling life. So enlarge our understanding is the better goal of having wide understanding about knowing or making moral decisions. However, feelings are too often the product of physiological needs, cultural conditioning, and selfish motivations. So here we have to understand the difference between emotion and feelings. First, you have to know that emotion is a neurophysiological reaction. It is different from feelings, because feelings is the outward manifestation of an emotion. Let's say, for example, if you are hungry, you have that certain understanding that is an emotion, but expressing it as an action or as an expression, facial expression, it's already a feeling. So it's an outward manifestation of emotion, the feelings. So sometimes it is influenced by cultural conditioning, sa atong kultura, sa atong environment, our selfish motivations, what our motivations. So that's why it needs to be watched, that through critical thinking as the corrective force, giving the power to examine and guide our feelings to achieve a more balanced view. So you have to know that this mind, this critical thinking that we have, is gifted to us to be used. Let me tell you a story about emotion and feelings, because there is a certain facts in the past. It was about I forget the name. I guess it's Phineas Gage. The person who was working in a railway industry. It happened that he met an accident where a iron rod nituhog niya from the left face down up to the here in the frontal lobe of his brain. It happened that he survived the accident. He was able to live, but it seems like the emotion has removed from him. He was no longer that person that he was before. He's already impatient. He is no longer consistent with his principles, and he is no longer that person who was disciplined in work. He is always late. There's a great effect on the behavior. So although he can still think and do some normal things like normal people do, but it seems like the emotion is no longer capable in that particular person. So we can say that if you have no emotion, you are already less able person to think well. I guess critical thinking is no longer that efficient. So that's why these researchers will say that emotion and the mind, the critical thinking, should go hand in hand in order for you to produce a more balanced and more effective moral decisions. Conscience. It is conditioned by our upbringing, cultural background, and other influences. Let's say, for example, you are brought up in a Catholic or a Christian family of course, your conscience is affected by it. It speaks to us as in an imaginary, the authoritative voice. Authoritative because we tend to believe in it and follow it. Sometimes, if you are not really immersed to stealing, no, but the first time you, for example, you steal an item, your conscience will be very authoritative. It will tell you to correct your action, to return the thing, and then to be honest. So, but for some people, let's say for example those people who brought up in a dysfunctional family, broken family, and they used to do some some immoral things like stealing and cussing and telling lies. It seems like their conscience is not that as the same as you, who grow up in a Christian and a religious family. So that's why like the feelings, it also be affected by irrelevant influences. So therefore we cannot say that conscience is an infallible indicator of moral truth. So we cannot rely moral truth based on conscience. So what about obligation and value? Obligation refers to what we are obligated to do. So obligatory conduct or duty generally applied to actions. So we can say that he should not have stolen the book. So the action of stealing, because stealing is wrong. Breaking her promise is wrong. The act of breaking her promise or breaking a promise is also equivalent to telling a lie, because he has broken the promise, or she has broken the promise. So we are focusing on judging the action, while value is an estimation of moral worth of what we think is good or bad. But this one is judging the moral worth of persons, their character or motives. Let's say for example, he was a good man. So he was a good man because, for example, that good man has done something bad. We would describe that person that he was a good man before. Or he did it out of greed. Let's say for example, a corrupt person or a corrupt politician. He has corrupted the money of the people. So we can say that he did it out of greed. So we judge the moral worth of the person, the character and the motive of the person. So that's why related to Aristotle's ethics. Moral indicators. So we have 3: right, wrong, and supererogatory. Right, it can be into circumstance. Permissible, it is allowed. One that is not wrong to perform. So permissible, allowed siya. That means dili ka masayop kung imong buhaton, or else pwede po siya nga dili ra pud nimo buhaton. Allowed, no, it is a supererogatory is different. Permissible, allowed, it is allowed. One that is not wrong to perform. So dili sayo buhaton because it is allowed to be done. While obligatory is different. It is required. One would be wrong not to perform it, so you should perform it regardless of whatever reasons or excuses you have. Wrong is prohibited. This is the opposite of obligatory. Action would be wrong to perform. While supererogatory, above and beyond or duty, one that is not required but is praiseworthy. Not required but is praiseworthy. Like for example, doing charitable actions. You will be donating to a foundation, to a charity, or giving alms, like such. Although that is not required, but that action itself is praiseworthy, right? So branches of ethics are normative ethics, meta-ethics, and applied ethics. Normative ethics, it focuses on exploration and evaluation of moral norms. Its goal is to use critical thinking to search for norms that we are justified in using as guides to the moral life. So it focuses on searching for norms that could guide us, that could be our standard in doing and judging things in our lives. Meta-ethics is not concerned with what are the things that we need to do, or what are the way of life that we need to follow. It is focused on the fundamental assumptions, concepts, and reasoning involved in the field of ethics. Let's say it deals with questions: what is goodness, what is rightness, what is virtue. So that is metaethics. The third and the last one is applied ethics. It is focusing on application of moral principles or virtues or theories to real life cases or issues. This is what I'm saying, that these are ethics deduced into more specific one. Like, say for example, ethics in medical field, what is allowed and not allowed in the medical environment, in business, legal, and environmental ethics. Laws and ethics. Laws are norms of behavior established and enforced by the state. They're often in agreement with moral norms. Let's say, for example, killing or murder is both legally and morally wrong. Legal and moral norms are distinct. That's the thing. So an action may be legally permissible but morally permissible, and vice versa. Let's say, for example, abortion may be legal but it is immoral. Gay marriage may be legal but it is immoral for some and for believers. Alright, so I hope you learned, especially on the terms about things revolving about ethics, about the introduction of ethics. You will be immersing more. You will be given more of this in the reports later on, especially on if it's already connected or being related to real life scenarios. You would better understood these things, especially the perspectives of ethics that we are going to discuss later on. So thank you and God bless.